Welcome back, or welcome if you are new to my booktube channel, Goddess of Gore. My name is Vix and I like to talk about horror, thriller, sometimes fantasy and occasionally sci-fi books every week. Today I want to talk about all of the books I want to read in the month of August, and of course this is an overambitious list and it's a bit late, so we better get on with it. As you will find out next week in my reading wrap-up, I'm not doing very well at reading recently. So I've decided to draw a line under all of that nonsense and move on. Leave all of my previous monthly unread problems right there at said line. I will not be adding them onto this month's list. So August is a new month with a new readathon. The Mixtapeathon, in fact. Starting on the 1st of August and ending on the 14th. This has its own bingo board to tick off all of the prompts. It has summer song themes, hosted by 4 wonderful English and Scottish booktubers: Victoria from What Victoria Read, Jean from Jean's Bookish Thoughts, Charlotte from Books and Bargains, and of course Leanne from Literary Diversions. In order not to spook myself into another reading slump, I have combined the prompts, and so I have chosen to read The Children of Red Peak by Craig DeLuey for Here Comes the Sun, nature on the cover, and the Blame It on the Weatherman. I don't know this song, sorry. Unseasonable Reads. I don't know if it is an unseasonable read per se, but the cover does make it look snowy. This is a book about 3 child survivors of a small doomsday cult, and after they meet up at a funeral of another child survivor, they come together with their long repressed memories, first good and then very bad, including the last horrific night at Red Peak when it all turned bad. They begin to put their fractured memories back in order and wonder how it all turned sour. They eventually return to face their memories, but will Red Peak let them escape a second time? Summer, summer, summertime, summertime. Read in a sunny spot. This will be completely out for me because, as I'm sure I've mentioned before, I have an aversion to the sun. As in, I hate it, it hates me. But I will be reading in the daylight hours. Does that count? Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. Or self-care. Well, I will be doing my other hobbies, and for that I will probably put that in my readathon wrap-up, so you'll have to keep an eye out for that. But I will also have to remember to film it. Back in the summer of '69 is to put up some old summer holiday pictures of yourself, so I will root out those and put them in the wrap-up video too. And I've got some right corkers. And for the Cake by the Ocean, again, I don't know this song either. It's to read a spicy, filthy book, or book with food on the cover, and oh, we're going to Ibiza. I dare you to try and say that without singing it. A book set in another country. I was obviously not going to choose a spicy book because the descriptions are just too hilarious for me. Do I need to point you to my review of The House of Sky and Breath in my July wrap-up video? No. But for these 2 prompts, I will choose the first book in my favourite series, the Tiffany Aching series by Terry Pratchett, and I thought it was high time I gave it a reread and made it fit the prompt. And if you look very, very closely at the cover, one of the Knack McFeagles are carrying an egg, and of course Terry Pratchett's Discworld are set not only in another country, but in another world, so you can't get better than that. Set in the countryside called The Chalk, Tiffany is a witch in training, and when her little brother is kidnapped and taken to Fairyland, she and the not so helpful Knack McFeagle clan, 6-inch sheep thieves who are so tattooed their skin is now just blue, together they must face the Queen of the Elves to fight for her brother's safe return. Then for the mixtape, which is a free choice or a book based on your favourite summer tune. And what says summer like a dip in the ocean, the calming waves splashing over you as you drift further and further out to sea. And quite frankly, if you are swimming in the open water and the first thought isn't of the infamous John Williams tuba tooting theme to Jaws, then there's something clearly wrong with you and we can't be friends. Which was a rather longer explanation for my choice of Jaws by Peter Benchley. And I am going to listen to it because here on YouTube there's quite a few audio versions and that will mix up the reading a bit. So if you don't know, and if you don't, where have you been? This is the book that Spielberg based the famous movie of the same title on, about a man-eating shark that has decided to overstay its welcome in the holiday town of Amity, the New Yorkers' beach of choice. And the residents and businesses rely on the summer trade year in, year out. But after the first few victims of the shark, local law enforcement shut the beach down, and so the politicians get involved and overrule the beach closures. Obviously, this doesn't go down well for the swimmers, but it turns out rather nice for the shark. I'm interested to know how this fares to the film because honestly, love that damn shark. I'm not going to sing The Summer Night from Greece, but that's what this movie night summer film is based on, which the hosts have decided will be Mamma Mia. And to that I say, no thank you. I cannot possibly watch that film because I have a note. I turned it off the first time I watched it. I can't put myself through that again. I will save this for the very last night of the readathon, and I think I will choose either Jaws or Friday the 13th or something like that. It'll probably be Jaws though, because I don't need a reason. So what else? Well, I noticed the other day that the shortlist for the first 2022 Ursula K LeGuin Prize has been announced, so I thought I would try and read the 9 books up for the award. This is a brand new award for imaginative fiction, and the winner will be announced on the 21st of October. I thought it would be a great idea to read some top quality books, most of which I have not even heard of. So I'll run through them in the order they are on Ursula Le Guin's page. After the Dragons by Cynthia Zhang is a book about the decline of dragons in the East. They brought fire and terror to the Western world, but in the East they brought life-giving rain. Struggling to survive in the overheated and polluted Beijing, burnt lung is afflicting the humans of the city, and drought threatens the aquatic life. Shang Keifi scours the streets looking for abandoned dragons as a distraction from his own diagnosis of the awful burnt lung that is overtaking the city. Medical researcher Elijah Ahmed, drawn to the city after the death of his grandmother from the same disease, they form an unlikely friendship based on their love of dragons. But can they also find a cure for the burnt lung and keep the dragons safe? Appleseed by Matt Bell, the cli-fi book that starts in the 18th century with a couple of brothers planting a load of apple trees in the hope of making a bit of money in the future. Fast forward to the future and to the second half of the 21st century, and one company owns all of the world's resources, having invested in genetic engineering and food sciences, which is just about the only thing going in the now ravaged Earth due to climate change. Fast forward even further to the 22nd century, and north of America is a giant sheet of ice, and one lonely being inhabits a tech centre on top of a glacier, and after a homing beacon is set off, it begins the impossible journey across continents to hopefully discover the last civilization. That sounds sad. I'm thinking of WALL-E. God, I love that film. Anyway, next in the list up for a chance at the 25 grand cash tip and a piece of silverware is Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky, a book set on a distant planet and follows an anthropologist who has to help the people he is studying with the help of an annoying lowly princess to save their planet from a demon. They need the help of the elder sorcerer who lives at the top of a tower, but he is forbidden to assist because he thinks he knows it is not a demon. This sounds vague, but it's only 200 pages long and I didn't want to spoil it for myself. Employees by Olga Raven is translated from Danish by Martin Aitken, a workplace novel in the 22nd century. I really hope it's not as boring as that first line. It is set aboard the spaceship 6000. A crew of born and created humans and humanoids pick up objects from the planet New Discovery, and they find themselves becoming attached to the said objects as they all long for intimacy. Gradually the crew are changed and they have what seems to be an existential crisis when they question what it means to truly be alive. Bearing in mind this is only 136 pages long, just how much they can figure out in that time we will see. In the House of Rust by Khadija Abdallah Bajaba, we follow Aisha, a Hadrami girl from Mombasa, on a fantastical voyage to find her missing fisherman father. She sets sail on a boat made from a skeleton. Along with her talking cat, she will meet 3 terrifying sea monsters, and after a final meet with Baba Wa Papa, the big daddy shark, she will finally get to her father. This sounds amazing, using tales from both Swahili and Hadrami cultures. How High We Go in the Dark has had a lot of popularity here on BookTube already, so I am looking forward to seeing what all the fuss is about. Sakuya Nagamatsu has written a spellbinding book starting in the year 2030 and spanning over hundreds of years, when a grieving Arctic archaeologist finds the perfectly preserved body of a young girl who appears to have died from a deadly virus. The so-called Arctic plague ravishes through the world, reshaping life on Earth as the novel flits into a few lives and we get to see the small beauty of a humanity as it faces the very real reality of tragedy. I will be reading my second Catherine M. Valenti book this time, with The Past is Red, and I will be anxious to see if I prefer this one because, as I said after reading Comfort Me with Apples, her writing was amazing. I just didn't particularly like the subject. But this one is about Garbage Town. In a future that is endlessly blue, except for a few floating islands left in a drowned world, we meet Tetley Abednego, the most beloved girl on the magical island that's full of love, hate and hope. Once Tetley finds out a terrible secret, can she go on knowing there's more to her world than she ever expected? Again, this is another one of the shorter books on the award shortlist. Darcy Little Badger is up for the award with A Snake Falls to Earth, a book about Nina, a Lipan girl who believes in the old stories, and Ollie, who is a cottonmouth from the land of spirits and monsters, who lives on the banks of the bottomless lake. After a strange sickness on Earth, the two find each other in ways that haven't been seen for centuries. Darcy has used her Lipan Apache heritage to weave together an unforgettable tale of monsters, magic and family. I haven't read Darcy's 2020 Latsue yet, but I will get to it at some point because I know how much that book was loved. And the last book up for the Ursula K LeGuin Award is Summer in the City of Roses by Michelle Ruiz Keel, and I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that properly. I do always try to check pronunciations because it's a pet hate of mine to say names wrong. So I am deeply sorry if I killed it. This is a book inspired by the Greek myth of Iphigenia, the grim story brother and sister set in 1990s in Portland. It tells the tale of two siblings trying to get reunited after being torn apart. Sensitive 15-year-old Orr is sent to a wilderness boot camp by his father to toughen him up, and 17-year-old protective sister If has to figure out how to track him down. Told in magical realism and myths, this is about how spending their first summer apart, brother and sister have to learn how to find their own new respective places in the world. Honestly, I cannot wait to get to these books. So, I know what you're thinking. Vix, that's only 12 books. I always pick 1,000,000. And yes, you're right, because when I was crawling through Stephen Graham Jones's Twitter, I'm not a stalker, a couple of weeks ago I noticed he had won the Locus Award for horror, and of course Stephen deserves this prize because I think he's a wonderful human, and just because I haven't read a single one of his books doesn't mean he isn't the creme de la creme of everything. So, after a little typing on my computer, I found the Locus magazine website and found out that on June the 25th there was a virtual awards ceremony. And at first I was like,
oh, I'll read all the whole shortlist.
Until I realised that for each genre there was a shortlist of 10 books, each category. So I came to my senses and thought I would just concentrate on the horror prize and make it my TBR entitled Did They Make the Right Choice? Because, you know, I have such exquisite taste and I have the best opinion in the whole world, and therefore my opinion is the right and only one. This is sarcasm. I have terrible taste. Come on, I like salad cream sandwiches. The Locus Awards are huge. They have an award for science fiction, fantasy, horror, YA, debut novel, novella, novelette, short story. Side note, those 3 I will probably be using for Shorty September next month. Anthology, collection, magazine, publisher, editor, artist, non-fiction, illustrated and art book, and then a single special award for outstanding community building. So, who would I have given the Locus Prize to then? The nominees in the horror fiction were, obviously, because it won, My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, a book about an angry girl, Jade, whose only outlet from the abusive single-parent father is horror films, especially slashers. But when blood is actually spilled in her hometown, she uses her encyclopedic knowledge of the slashers to predict the outcome of her own destiny. So will it stand up to this critic panel of one? We'll find out. Also up for the award was Revelator by Darrell Gregory, set in 1933 in the backwoods of Tennessee, a southern gothic tale about Stella, raised by her grandmother in her own mysterious religion and personal god, Ghost Daddy, who she finds in a cave. Years later, and now a bootlegger, Stella returns for her grandmother's funeral and to check on Sunny, who her grandmother adopted after Stella fled the home. She finds out that although appearing innocent, Sunny is anything but. Next was The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. It's about a group of final girls, some of which you will recognise from their backstory from the most popular slasher films, attend a therapy group attempting to put their lives back together after the massacres decades earlier. But when one of them doesn't attend their session, their worst fears are realised. Their past has finally caught up with them, and someone wants to finish what they started. Billy Summers and Later, both by Stephen King. Billy Summers is about a gun for hire of the same name. He wants out, but he has one last hit on his list. What could possibly go wrong? Sounds like a simple enough story, but at over 500 pages, is it though? And Later is short, almost half as short as Billy Summers, and you know me and Stephen's short stories, I loves them. This one's about Jamie, who can see dead people. Does it sound familiar? It is. Moon Lake by Joe R. Lansdale. In East Texas lives Daniel, whose father tried to kill them both by driving into Moon Lake when he was 13 years old. Now an adult, he returns to retrieve his dad's remains and the car from the lake, but he discovers more than the wreckage when he's twisted into old murders and dark deeds. A Broken Darkness by Premi Mohammed is book 2 of the Beneath the Rising series, so have I got to read book 1 to understand this one? I don't know. But I'm leaving this one until last just in case I end up having to read 2 books. I'll give the synopsis of both books because I don't think it has context without the first one, to be honest. Basically, when Joanna, nicknamed Johnny, a teenage science genius, invents a clean energy generator, it draws the attention of malevolent, extra-dimensional gods by opening portals and gates to other dimensions. And now Johnny and her best friend Nick start a desperate attempt to close the gates to stop the forces of evil. And then book 2, the book that was up for the award, is set a year and a half later, and there's now a secret society that Nick is part of to monitor threats to humanity, which includes Johnny and her inventions. When new gates begin to open, the two of them are thrown back together, but will they succeed a second time to fight the darkness? Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon has been at the forefront of my really want to get to list for some time, so I am very happy that this was on the Locus Award shortlist. Pregnant Vern escapes a religious compound only to give birth in the shelter of the woods. She plans to raise her newborn twins in those woods, far from the outside world. But the community she has escaped will not let her go so easily. She undergoes a metamorphosis to protect her family, and in order to understand the changes she has begun, she will have to uncover the secrets of the religious compound she fled and the violence that made it. In The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling, Jane Shoringfield needs a marriage of convenience, and the dashing Dr. Lawrence agrees under one condition: she must never visit Lindridge Hall, the family's crumbling mansion. But on her wedding night, she is left stranded during a rainstorm and finds herself in the exact front door she mustn't visit. But when she is met not by her surgeon husband, whom she thought she knew, but by a paranoid man who is convinced Jane is an apparition of his wife come to haunt him. A gothic horror set around the English Lindridge Hall in a Crimson Peak style. And who doesn't love Crimson Peak? Well, at least aesthetically. And last but not least, the much loved and raved about at the end of last year, The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig, set in the past and present of the lives of a now married couple, Maddie and Nathan, who have returned to their hometown of Pennsylvania with their son Oliver. They must face what still haunts them and is now haunting their son. Something creepy, something sinister is happening to their empath son as well as Maddie and Nate. And when Oliver begins to make a new friend, they should be happy, shouldn't they? It's got ghosts, creepy noises and visions. It's got heartbreak, and I'm there for this chunky boy of a book. Now, luckily, I have already read Later by Stephen King and Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, so I don't have to reread those unless I really want to. But the nominees for all of the categories in the Locus Awards are superb. If you're ever at a loss of what to pick up next, you'd do much better than running your eyes over these guys. Ooh, poetry. Nice. But of course, other book awards are available elsewhere. I, of course, will be trying to get to the books I really should have read by now, but I'm getting a bit of a sweat just thinking about that huge list of doom. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm so amazed and grateful that you do. Like and subscribe if you want to. If you've read any of the books I've mentioned for the two awards, which do you think either will win or should have won? Have you ever read the books up for a prize and been left dumbfounded at the actual victor of the prize? I know the Goodreads Choice Award for Horror left a few readers scratching their heads by who won last year. Let me know in the comments section below, because I am always interested in what your guys' opinions are. And remember, Lucille Sharp said it best when she said, the horror was for love. The things we do for love like this are ugly, mad, full of sweat and regret. This love burns you, maims you and twists you inside out. It is a monstrous love, and it makes monsters of us all. Until next time, bye bye.